In this video, we have a fantastic panel today. We got the Italiano, Mr. Sherer and Mr. Michael Ebba. We're talking all about that Hey Brickey video. We're about the Avengers campus. We're gonna watch the video and kind of react and respond along the way, like we do here on the channel. Great panel, like I said. Up next on OG 50. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG 55. We're talking all about Avengers Campus today. But before we do, I'm going to introduce my fantastic panel. We got right over here the Italiano, looking dapper as always. Italiano, if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Gracias, I appreciate it. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There he is. And right down below me, we got the our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man over here, Michael Ebba. Yeah. So Jay, we call him Spider-Man because he has a Spider-Man energy. You know what I'm saying?
He does. Oh my gosh, he does. It's the best.
You're a Peter Parker, Ebba. So if he has to duck out during the show, he's out saving the city. So, but Ebba, if you could remind everybody where they can find you on social media, sir.
Yes, sir, OG, thank you so much for having me on with all you gentlemen. You can find me on Instagram, Michael Ebba, and Twitter/X at Michael Ebba 1991. And then you can also find me here on OG 55, where I always save everybody on the channel and then sometimes have to go save the city. So check it out.
There it is. And last but certainly not least, we got Mr. Jay Sherer. Fantastic having you back on, Jay. If you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to be here. I've really taken my my X usage and drastically reduced it, and I feel pretty good about that. Actually, I don't feel like I'm missing out on much besides talking to these guys. But I talk to them.
Can't imagine why.
Yeah, can't imagine why. So you can't find me over there. Don't find me over there. Go ahead, OJ.
Well, I was going to ask you about that actually. Like, so you've stepped back quite a bit from X. Like, you feel better though. Like, it's less. Like, you feel like a lot less stress or whatever from.
So like I don't get like really like fired up about stuff on X all that much, just because I feel like it's like it's a place for hot takes, right? Like there's not much nuance to X. So what I would find myself doing, which was kind of exhausting, is if I wanted to have a conversation with someone, I would try to go through this like write out this long responses and try to have like a healthy dialogue, and it just is not the place for it. So I was like, why am I even bothering? So yeah, I feel pretty good being off of it. Like, I even took away my check mark. I stopped paying Elon for the check mark, and I just like, you know what? I don't care. So yeah, it's the only thing I will say is that I do DM these guys on other channels, usually with dumb Instagram or Reels or something. But I do miss talking to Alia, because I don't really talk to Alia on any of the other socials. She's kind of just on Twitter. So shout out to Alia. I miss chatting with you on there. But yeah, otherwise, I'm pretty good not being on X. I am on YouTube. How Stories Work with Jay Sherer. But I have not done a video in a while. I've been a guest a couple times on the Bad Thoughts Studio podcast with our friends Tones and the Candid Camper. So you can check me out over there a couple times. And then I've always loved being on OG 55 with my brothers. So thanks for having me on. It's going to be a really good show today. And OG, did you say we're talking about a Hey Brickey video?
We are.
Because you know what you got to do when you do a Hey Brickey video.
Oh,
you gotta put on your Detroit Tigers cap.
There we go.
Shout out to Hey Brickey. We're gonna react to your video today, brother.
Absolutely. And Brickey is a friend of the channel. Sometimes he does pop into the live chat. So we'll see. Maybe he'll show up for this one. It'd be pretty cool. Yeah. Let's rock and roll. All right, here we go. So Mr. Brickey, I'm going to play it. And then, gentlemen, if you want me to stop it along the way, just say, hey, OG, I got something to say, and we'll stop it and talk about it. And this video is about 10 minutes long, not too long. So.
Been nearly 3 years. And it seems that most Disney theme park fans kind of agree that thus far it's been a bit of a stumble. But there's one part of Avengers Campus that I cannot stop thinking about, and it comes from this building right here where we were promised a e-ticket attraction, or what you would call a premier attraction that would exist in this building where we'd get to go on an adventure with the Avengers. When I saw the concept artwork, I could tell the Walt Disney Imagineering was taking a swing at something truly innovative and imaginative. So friends, my dying desire to know took me on a wild goose chase of spending one evening looking over 10 years of Disney theme park patents. And I think I have discovered the patents for what this ride's technology was scheduled to be. And I have a couple of theories on why it's not happening. And that is what we're breaking down today. But first, let's get into the why I believe this was canceled, and then we'll break down what the 3 different versions of technology I found that I believe could be for the missing Avengers E Ticket attraction, version 1. If we look at a timeline, 2019, Avengers Campus is announced, and we see 2 images of artwork for this upcoming 3rd attraction. And then in 2001, the land opens, and there's no real announcement on when we can anticipate or expect the missing attraction. And then at D23 in 2002, we would learn that the plans would change, and these pieces of concept artwork that I'm obsessed with were scrapped. And instead, we got King Thanos and the multiverse, which honestly seemed a little bit lazy to me. But King Thanos isn't the only one who...
Let's kind of talk about that for a second, because this concept art, let me get back to it.
Wait, OG, honestly, I just had something to say real quick.
Sure.
I wish that Disney, I hope when in their future other land expansions they do, whether it's Disneyland or Walt Disney World, I really hope they stop doing stuff where they open a land without their kind of, premium marquee attraction.
I agree. Just do it all at once. Like, don't give us the phase bullshit. Like, I'd rather wait a little bit and just have everything just kind of open. I mean, even if it's like not like a couple weeks or maybe a month or so, I can understand. But like years upon years like that, and I get it, of the effects of what happened in 2020. But like, if it would have opened with the land, then we wouldn't have to be worrying about it.
Well, and it really would anchor everything. Like, technically, I know Mission Breakout is part of Avengers Campus, but for some reason, because it opened so much like earlier, like in, what was it, 2017. Mm-hmm. It still feels like it's connected but separate for some reason,
Yeah.
Like, this land really needed a big e-ticket.
May 27th, 2017. That's how I know, because I was there opening day.
There it is. There it is. Now, I want to ask you guys, Jay, what are your thoughts on this, man? Because this reminds me a lot, at least from the concept art, kind of reminds me of like a Transformers at Universal or something.
You know what? This is a hard one, because here's the problem that Disney is faced with. Yes, pandemic, but also the pretty quick decline of the MCU as a cultural phenomenon, right? So like the hard part about this is that it's hard to know what Disney is wanting to accomplish with the MCU alone. And then when they try to translate that into theme park attractions, it's even more difficult to understand. Like they released Pym's Test Kitchen, which is a phenomenal theme park idea. And then they went and released Quantumania. You're like, what? This is like this is a loss, right? So like, I think that, and then there's other things too. Like, I think that people are very much divided. Well, maybe I'm the only one that's divided. I like web slingers. Nobody else likes it that I know. But I think that there are. I think the Doctor Strange show is awesome. I thought it was a really fun show. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that Avengers Campus takes some of the best of the MCU and yet is working with the MCU. And so it looks to me like what they tried to do is they tried to say, why don't we bring some of the best of the MCU back? Because Thanos was some of the best of the MCU. So we'll just announce a Thanos ride. So here's what's difficult for me to say. As far as the concept goes, all we have here is like some people on what could be a simulator. And then you have your standard Marvel Comics kind of, here's all the characters that we could put in this ride effectively. It's kind of cool to see Daredevil. But you say King Thanos. So like, this is a different take on Thanos, obviously coming from a different storyline from the comics. I don't know what it was supposed to be before this, but it feels like somebody said, maybe we should go back to the Thanos well. And I think that's what Brickey means when he says like it feels a little bit lazy to him. Like let's not innovate anything. Let's just go back to let's just keep doing the hits, right? And I get what he's saying. I feel like the concept art, to be honest, is trying to excite me about nostalgia I had for something all the way back in 2018, 2019. And it just is like that we've passed that. All the other things you've come out with are not good. And so it feels a little pandery, right? And that's the only thing that I would say is kind of, I don't know. Not that
and
exciting.
Jay, I'll do you one better because I was actually at the D23 Expo when they announced this. Yes, I was at the past D23 Expo, not this upcoming one that royally screwed me. But anyway, when they announced it then, and that was in 2022.
Yep.
Yeah, 2022. I'm thinking, okay, Infinity War's over.
Yeah.
It's like Thanos for me is in the past. Like if you want to give me something like how relevant is Thanos? And I know a lot of people say, well, how relevant are all the Disney villains? You know, but the thing is with the Disney villain as opposite to a Marvel villain is they keep them relevant in the storyline, in the parks, in wherever you're at, you see the antagonist. Where I feel like with Marvel, it's like a start, stop, go, and start up again, like per villain. So it's like you have a villain, they get destroyed or what have you, and then you don't hear about them ever again. You move on. It's a forgotten memory. So as you had mentioned, when you try to incorporate that into a theme park environment, it's very much difficult to convey to your guests, your audience, to say how relevant really are these characters anymore. And I feel like I was checked. I was done. Like once I saw Infinity War, once I saw Endgame,
right,
it was a phenomenal ending. It was like, okay, what's the new threat? Like, I'm done with Thanos.
Yeah, and you're right, George. I mean, it's like I feel with the MCU, it's a different animal because it's that connective universe. So once you are beyond a certain point, it feels like been there, done that. You know what I'm saying? And also, I feel like to Brickey's point too, I feel like this is kind of lazy, and because they're kind of going, well, they are going the multiverse route, which I feel is sort of like an excuse to just kind of throw synergy in there. So I could see like what they would do with this, right? It would basically be, okay, so we have a new show coming out, right?
Yeah.
Let's throw, Agatha. Okay, that show comes out. We can have Agatha come out of the portal for the ride for 3 months to promote the show.
Yeah,
it can be kind of cool, but at the same time, it feels like you were saying, Jay, a little pandery and a little cheap, kind of, right?
It's kind of like where like Star Tours is at now. You kind of just like use Star Tours as a filler that whatever is coming out, like whether it's like with Ahsoka or Andor or the god awful Acrolite, whatever. It's like, and it didn't even come out yet. And I'm sorry, that trailer is, don't even get me started. But yeah, that's what I feel like that they would do with this. It's like a next generation Star Tours, but yeah, using that same kind of ride system that they do for like Transformers.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting.
I've got an idea. Sorry to interrupt, but I got an idea I want to pitch you guys a ride by the end of this that I think should have gone in here, and we'll see what you guys think of it. So stay tuned to the end.
So with this, right? So I get what they're trying to do with the whole multiverse thing, because here's the thing: what I don't want them to do with the Avengers Campus is like what they did with Galaxy's Edge, and that's make it into one like specific timeline. That's kind of my theme, because now at Galaxy's Edge, you don't have Darth Maul, you don't have Darth Vader or clone troopers, right? So at Avengers Campus, when you go there, right, you have all the different characters. Even like when Moon Knight came out, he was out there. Even with What If, with like the Captain America zombie, that was cool. So I think maybe with this, again, we don't know what type of ride this is going to be, but for the concept art, it looks like it could be like a kind of a Star Toursy Transformers multiverse theme where they want to incorporate different things, because they don't want to maybe have something that's one set setting in a timeline maybe. But then at the same time, I'm like, going back to Thanos, I agree with you guys. It is kind of a cop out, so to speak. So.
It's basically what I said, like the last video that we recorded with Cordy. It's like you go up to Josh tomorrow. It's like you ask him, like very intrigued, like, what is this Avengers E ticket going to become? And he just looks at you and he goes,
You tell me. Yeah, we're on this journey together. You know?
Yes.
Multiverse, which honestly seemed a little bit lazy to me. But King Thanos isn't the only one who changed, because when this ride was originally announced, it was announced under Bob Iger's leadership. Then suddenly, King Thanos shows up in the middle of Chapek's run. Now, we all know Chapek liked to cut back. I do find the leadership change is very interesting, as that's when the ride seemed to change. And now that Bob Iger is back at the helm, he always talks about avatars coming, or Josh tomorrow talks about.
Because this is like a piece of rhetoric from the Disney community that I'm going to disagree with Brickey a little bit here on.
Okay.
We know that Chapek was in charge of the parks during one of the best eras of Disney expansion and renewal, right? The 2010s were amazing in terms of what was coming out in the parks all the time. And I feel like Chapek is called Cheapek all the time, and he's given these nicknames of like he's going to cut costs and do all this kind of stuff. And I think that people are a little bit unfair given the context. Like when he was in charge of the parks were expanding. We got Buena Vista Street. I don't know how far back he goes, so I don't know all my history.
He started in 2015.
That was under Tom Staggs.
So even then, we still got a bunch of money spent on Galaxy's Edge and all of that, right? Like, and so I feel like one of the things that people do is they say, oh, it's because Bob Chapek came in instead of Bob Iger. But here's the thing. You just went down through the pandemic. You completely lost revenue for a period of almost a year long. It just seems unfair to me to say like, oh, of course it was Chapek who cut everything. It's like, do you think he would have cut it all had the pandemic not happened? I just don't believe that that's actually true. So I think it's like there's a lot of speculation that goes into that accusation. It's not to say that it's not true, because obviously costs were cut, but what are you going to do if you're the leader of the Walt Disney Company at that time? You can't just greenlight everything.
Well, and to be honest with Chapek, I mean, when he actually, I mean, at least with Chapek, he announced stuff and built stuff. Like, you know, when he announced Cosmic Rewind, we got Cosmic Rewind, right?
Exactly.
He went for how terrible it was with Pixar Pier. When he announced it, we got it though. At least with tomorrow, we're not even getting announcements. It's a bunch of blue sky, maybe agree. What if, you know? So, yeah, I agree with you, Jay. The guy gets way more crap than he deserves. Not that he was perfect by any means.
No, he wasn't perfect. No, I agree. But I just think that, like, blaming him for cutting costs when you had to cut costs. What are you going to do? Be like, I'll spend another $1 billion, but we don't even know if we can expand, go full bore into the parks. I mean, I don't know. I just think it's a little bit unfair to the guy.
Well,
go ahead, Ebba.
And also, Jay, to your point, and with yours too, right? I mean, I will admit, I was one of those people who was pretty harsh on Chapek, right? Like when I saw he was like, he was gone from Disney, I was like, thank God, right? But I have to, as a Disney fan, pull myself out of like this bubble and be like, okay, that kind of same pressure I was putting on Chapek, I also have to put on Bob Iger. You know, like I needed to see it from Bob Iger too, because I know Daddy Josh, he's he's also in charge of this, but if the buck stops at the leadership, that's Bob Iger. So I have to put that same pressure on him, because otherwise I'm just a hypocrite going, oh, no, bad Bob Chapek, and then yay, Bob Iger. No. I'm going to put that same responsibility on whoever's up at the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so. And well said. But here's the other thing too, is that there were I heard with the original concept, and I think Brickey's going to get into this in the video, but with the original concept, the Quinjet ride, which was the first incarnation of this attraction, the Imagineers in Disney, they were not happy with the capacity of that attraction. It wasn't able to cycle enough guests through. So that has to be added to part of this equation, where it's not necessarily just Chapek being cheap. They had to actually redesign the attraction to get more capacity. Yeah. So when you do that, you make decisions, and maybe that decision led to this kind of more transformer-like vehicle, things like that. So it's not necessarily a cost-saving thing, every time. Sometimes
Right.
it's just logistical, and there's other factors, and that's the issue too. There's a lot of times with most of this stuff, there's a lot of gray area. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I actually just real quick for Spider-Man, because I know you really like that, right? But I think for Spider-Man, also maybe this Avengers E-Ticket ride, I think a cool system would have been is something kind of akin to the Forbidden Journey type of Kuka arm or something similar to that, right? Where it's kind of moving around, you get up close to the set pieces and the action. I think that would have been really cool.
Yeah, no,
and
absolutely.
I think that is one out of the three ride systems that Brickey does mention in the video. And before we continue on, which also makes me think too, where again, I know when Disney files a patent, you got to take it with a grain of salt. It doesn't mean like something's going to be built with this patent right away. It's just for Disney to kind of have it in their portfolios that down the road, if something were to need a type of ride system or would fit, they have the patent to do so. But I bring that up because recently they had filed another patent, which they're kind of calling it the Soarin' 2.0. It's like a new type of ride system that would accelerate the older system of Soarin', and people are saying, okay, so is Soarin' going to get an update, which is a possibility, but it also makes me wonder if that patent could potentially be for the Avengers E-Ticket.
Yeah, and supposedly that Soarin' 2.0 patent it's Soarin', but I think it was kind of being more billed as like a little more thrilling, a little bit more of an edge to it. So that's kind of interesting too. It would kind of lead into something like this. Absolutely.
$60 million, enough land to build 7 more Disneylands. They talk about all these things, but what they never talk about is what's happening right here. But possibly the ultimate kiss of death to this project is when it was announced that they would open up the gift shop where guests are supposed to exit through the gift shop after riding the attraction. Oh, the store showed up, but no attraction. But friends, I have so many questions regarding this. Why did the ride change? Was it too ambitious? Was it too expensive? Like, why did they change somewhere in the middle? And why did they feel like they had to tell us? Is the King Thanos concept an upgrade or a downgrade? Because there were a lot of cost-cutting decisions being made when King Thanos showed up at the worst D23 in modern history. When is it going to show up, and why do they never mention it anymore? It's just like this thing that nobody talks about. Like Bruno, let's break down 3 different possible ride systems and decide, was it too ambitious or too expensive for Chapek economics? But as always, we will start with the easiest concept and work our way up to the most difficult. Up first is the pendulum swing ride system. I don't think that it's a bad ride system. I just don't think that it's the perfect one for this particular ride. But by looking at this more basic ride system, we can understand the limitations that it has and how Disney would need something that's more technical to deliver a true Avengers level experience. Introducing our first Disney patent, the track-based swing ride with long arm pendulum. This innovative ride system offers guests a thrilling experience with 3 movement variables. Suspended above, the track system allows for smooth forward and backward motion, while the pendulum, where guests are seated, swings left and right under controlled movement. With the addition of a rotor, riders can even spin 180 degrees for a backward ride.
Oh, man.
But the real excitement lies in the hidden features of this ride system. The track above the guests can navigate up to a 90-degree pitch, creating unexpected twists and turns in tight spaces. Imagine the thrill of perfectly synchronized twists and turns with a meticulously designed set, immersing guests in an unforgettable Avengers experience. Picture this concept in action. Imagine boarding a Quinjet where video screens set the mission. As the back of the jet opens, the pendulum ride begins, whisking guests through an urban environment filled with tight turns and stunning show scenes. Complete with practical props and video projections, finally, as the ride concludes, guests disembark into an unload zone, while the pendulum seamlessly returns to the Quinjet loading area for the next adventure. If this was the ride system, my guess for it being canceled was due to low rider capacity. Where our last
that's what I heard. It was the capacity, and they couldn't crack that code. They couldn't get it where, they could keep the integrity of this ride system, but also add that capacity. They just couldn't figure it out. And so I think that was, honestly, more than Chapek being cheap necessarily, I think that was the biggest sticking point for this concept. Unfortunately, because it sounded really dope. You were going to go into the Quinjet, and there was going to be something that happens where you have to eject out of it, and that's when you have this.
And I think too, I think that was kind of like somewhat of the nail in the coffin, so to speak, because when you amp something up like that by saying, okay, you're going to start in one vehicle, and then you're going to eject out into the battle zone and fight along the Avengers, and you're kind of like suspended in your own kind of dimensional space, if you will,
right?
And then you say that's what it's going to be, and you show a piece of concept art, but then to like 7,000-8,000 people, and then you're going to then come back and say, okay, well, it's not going to work, which I understand on Disney's behalf. If it doesn't work, just don't throw it in there just for the sake of, because I would rather them do it right. But when you amp that up to say, okay, this is going to be one kick-ass attraction, now you're going to have to redeliver with another form of a kick-ass attraction, and now they're trying to go through all the possibilities.
And this is the problem, or at least the disadvantage Disney has compared to Universal, because Universal isn't going to give you any details until they're 70% through the construction process.
Oh, okay, but fair. But here's the thing, though: is that a question of, is that the fault on Disney for doing that in the first place, or because here's the thing? I mean, unless I'm misinformed, but how come Universal can do that but Disney can't?
They can. I just think they just choose not to do that. That's just like their MO. It's like they like to try to get people's attention right then and there, but then it comes back and bites them in the ass. But to be fair, also us as fans and in the Disney community need to be a little bit more patient on that, because I feel like that when we kind of push Disney to say we want answers, well, when they give it to us, it's like it's either it's not going to deliver on time because they're trying to appease the fans, or it's like if you wait too long, it's like, okay, well, Disney's not delivering, so we got to lean towards Universal again.
Well, and here's the thing too: Universal doesn't have like an expo. Like Disney has D23, so they have to announce stuff, every 2 years, things like that. So it kind of sets them up for like this whole thing where it's like once they announce something and they show the concept art, fans get like mentally married to the art. And it's like, if we don't get the exact same thing that art show you, it's hell to pay. You know what I'm saying? And
that's where,
right.
And that's where, like when I said, when we did our video with Cordy, it's like, it does make me wonder if they do the expos too close. Like, I wonder if every other year is still too short to make such big announcements when you don't even have time to even think of something in development yet. And I just think 3, 4, possibly even 5. I know people are so used to having the expo every other year, but I think if you kind of accumulate a lot of content and announcements and news into a 5-year gap, that would be something worth going to, because if they make all these announcements this upcoming D23 in 2 years, what really are they going to say? But people are going to spend the money. They're going to go to this thing and they're going to say, wow, that was underwhelming. It underperformed from the last D23. Well, I wonder why, because what really more can they do in 2 years?
Yeah, they would have to just expand upon the announcements they already made and show you a little more detail and, stuff like that, probably.
Well, I have two things. One on the D23 thing. If they did like every 5 years or whatnot, then they would need to offer some other incentive to be a D23 gold member, I think. 2, Jay, I'm really curious on your view on this, because I haven't asked you this yet. This ties in with the like announcing things. Budgets, right? When you hear about 60 billion over the next course of years or whatever, right? What's your thought process? Like, do you think Disney should not announce their budgets like to us in that manner, or do you think they should wait until after they've already had something greenlit, they're good to go, or after they finish the project? Hey guys, we got this awesome, cool attraction here. It costed us X amount of dollars. Like, what's your thought on that?
I think it's a really good question. I mean, you guys know, you've heard me say this before, but like, Disney PR is not at its height, right? Like in the 2010s, I believe it was at its height. And I think they did such an amazing job in that decade of their PR. And I think to answer your question, I think that Disney has gotten in the habit of wanting to be a part of the cultural conversation all the time. And let's not pretend that that's not valuable, right? Because I mean, let's just take like somebody like in the political sphere, like Donald Trump. Like Donald Trump does not care how you portray him in your media. He just wants to be in the media. Like so he's like going to do anything he can to be in the media. What it feels like to me is that Disney, because Donald Trump has a brand, right? There's a brand of Donald Trump. Disney's brand is nothing like that. So Disney can't just be in the media and it's a good thing. And I think that that's kind of like part of the problem is that one of the things that they keep doing is they keep announcing things as if we're supposed to believe every single time that those things are going to be cool. But at the end of the day, I think what people love about Disney is the experience that they have when they invest in a Disney story, whether that's in the parks, in the theme park, or whether it's in something on TV or in the movies. And so what happens is when you say things like, it's a really good question, Michael, because if you say, hey, look, we're going to spend $60 billion, that's not saying to me you're going to experience a fantastic story around this particular type of thing. It's saying like, we're going to spend money. And you're like, okay, is that what I'm excited about when it comes to Disney? Or am I excited about the actual story that I'm actually engaging with? And so I think that the problem is that they're announcing whatever they can possibly announce to be in the sphere of the media. And I just don't like that approach.
And I think adding on to that, Jay, and I do agree with you. I think that the PR department for Disney right now, they need to really like take a step back and look at who's dealing with that because obviously it's not working. But adding on to what you were saying, and I also think too into Disney, you know, kind of looking at the other side of the spectrum, I also think too of everything that Disney has been tied to the last several years was controversy. You know, you had coming off of a worldwide shutdown and pandemic, you had Disney in the spotlight with a lot of controversial issues, particularly also with the state of Florida and the governor there. You have Disneyland Forward that everyone is focused on, that it's like it's up to Disney, you know, to expand Disneyland and what have you. So you have this proxy battle. It's a shakeup like between the board and who's going to be the next CEO. And I think with all that kind of like wrapped into one kind of big cluster ball, I'll call it, I feel like that Disney felt obligated at that time that if they give a specific price tag, we're getting people's attention. It's like it's a big chunk of money. It's like stay with us, stick with us. You know, we got this big amount. We're going to spend it. You don't know how we're spending it. Hell, we don't even know how we're going to spend it, but we're going to spend it somewhere. You know, so I think like in that aspect, I think that's where Disney is kind of utilizing it. I do agree with you, Jay. I do think in time they need to come out of that, and hopefully now that everything is starting to kind of ease down and starting to kind of simmer, I hope that Disney gets back on that track with, rather than make price assumptions and these big announcements, it's like get your ducks in a row first before you start making all these announcements and promises.
Well, and Jay, you bring up a great point where like, are fans excited about a dollar amount? And really, the dollar amount means nothing if you don't have a project or an idea of how that's going to be spent.
Right.
So well, 60 billion or 20 trillion, it doesn't really matter. Like, I don't know how that's being spent. Like, where's it going? Are we getting one crazy ride? Are we getting
tomorrow's hair products is probably worth
right? Exactly.
New cardigans for everyone.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's the allocation makes all the difference. You know, like I said many times, if you have $1,000, that can either be a lot of money if you go to 7-Eleven, or it can be next to nothing if you go to Chanel.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Go ahead, Ebba. I do apologize, sir.
No, sorry. I always interrupt you guys. But because my question to that for you guys was like, this is actually a big thing on social media with all the fans. Like they're so focused on the number, like oh my god, like they're only going to spend this amount on this and XX. And at this point, Jay, I'm just like, you know what, Disney, just show me what you got. Build me an awesome, amazing story, amazing attractions, and then if you want to tell us how much you spent, great. But I just want to see the cool, amazing stuff that I know WDI can build, for these parks or these like studio stories.
And
that's what I want to see.
And you're right, Mike, because honestly, back in the time when Cars Land was being built and Pandora was being built, were we all really sitting around in that moment where we're literally watching Radiator Springs get built right before our eyes? Are we really standing there saying, wow, I wonder what the price tag of this was? It's like, no, it's like, I can't wait to experience the land. I can't wait to ride this immersive ride. It's like, right. I mean, yeah, it can come up in conversation. It's like, wow, I bet you this costs Disney an arm and a leg to build. But I mean, like, is that really what we're focusing on as to how much an attraction or a land's price tag is?
Well, and that's the thing. And I remember when they announced DCA 2.0 back in 2007, I was so excited, I was like, oh my God. But this is the cool thing about that announcement. They gave you the price tag. They told you it was going to be $1 billion expansion of DCA, but they also gave us concept art to go along with the dollar amount. So we knew what we were getting. We knew we were getting Radiator Springs Racers. We knew we were getting Mermaid, a brand new nighttime show. So it's like we can put the dollar amount to what we're getting. And okay, that's cool. When Iger comes out there and he says, we're going to spend $60 billion over 10 years with literally no indication as to what that is going to be. Yeah. It's hard to get excited about it, unless you're like an accountant or something. Like that means nothing for a fan. You know what I'm saying? It's
well,
crazy.
on top of that, it's all vapor until you get the win. You can be Conor McGregor and you can trash talk all day long, but did you win? You know what I mean? Like so here's the thing. It's like the whole thing is like we get in arguments on Twitter about nonsense because we don't know if it's going to win or not. Right. Like, this is going to suck. That's going to suck. I can't believe this sucks. So then Disney puts they put people in that space because when there's nothing to talk about, this is like, I always use, remember, whenever I'm on this show, I start to use like sports analogies. But I used to be a Los Angeles Clippers fan living in Southern California and having to listen to Lakers radio. Like, it didn't matter how the Clippers were doing. It just was like, are the Lakers on top? Are they fighting in the clubhouse? Are they on the bottom because the owner sucks? Like, in other words, the space will be filled with opinions, right? The space will be filled. If you stop winning championships, all of a sudden the space is filled with conjecture and vaporware. And you're just in there going like, okay, yeah, well, that dollar amount sucks. If you're winning, nobody says anything. Nobody gets after the Yankees because they spent too much on their players. They just go, Yankees won again. Right? Like, that's just how the world works. So Disney's like, they're like, PR is just inserting themselves into conversations that are detrimental to their brand. It just drives me crazy.
It's honestly, you know what's so intriguing about you, Jay? We're talking about an Avengers E Ticket attraction at a Disney park, and yet an analogy of the Yankees like meshes well right into it. That's like so freaking awesome.
It's amazing. And Jay, to your point, it's kind of like the budgets, right? Because I know usually when you're on the show, we talk a lot about studio and stuff like that, right?
Yep.
No one complained about the Marvel movie budgets up until they started flopping. Then suddenly, no one cared that they spent $1 bajillion on Avengers Endgame and this, that, and the other. But when it started to lose and they stopped winning, then suddenly things were a little different, right?
There it is.
Right. Yeah. See, and exactly. And also, so I guess one last scene. And John Campy, I like to watch his channel. His show. Yeah. It's like what he says. Winning cures everything.
Yeah.
Right. Well, once they start winning, people are gonna quiet.
Yeah,
exactly.
One more point to this, just to the ride, OG.
Sure.
Disney could not, like, again, if we're talking about like why did they cancel this plan, right? Not just being cheap, they could not release this ride given what's happened with some of their e-tickets that they've released lately, where they've had to do the virtual queues, which people hate because there's not enough capacity. They can't get enough people through the ride. Like, Disney knows, they've learned over the past few years, like, we can't release a low capacity ride. Like, that's just not even feasible. Yeah. People won't pay to not get a virtual queue. They're not going to come to the parks because we will create an experience for them that is worse than them not even having the ride to go on. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
Cosmic Rewind still has a virtual queue. It still has a virtual queue.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, man, you couldn't get me on that thing again if you paid me.
dude, guys, I want to go on that so bad, bro. I want to go on that right so bad.
Oh my gosh, I felt so bad because like my Thrillometer is like completely different from everybody else's, and I've been with OG to the parks many times, but this was like the very first time like we spent like X amount of time, like in a long period of time, like, and I'm trying to think like, well, I'm trying to get hit like where his threshold is, and we got off, and all he said was, "Here's my threshold. There's Cosmic Rewind."
Yeah. I rode with our friend Mindy, you know, and she's the same as me. Like, yeah, we came off of that thing like we had like claw nails in each other's arms. Like we were just done, dude. We were done.
And this is post hitting your head too, right?
Right. I was nursing a head injury. Like this is like day 3 of it, or day 2 or 3. You know, so still pretty fresh. So that probably didn't help.
This ride system didn't feel ambitious enough. I feel like this next one maybe was too ambitious, and that could be why we haven't seen it materialize. We are looking at a vertical launch flying roller coaster. This ride system feels like a perfect fit, and it would be my first pick if I didn't know our third and final option, which is pretty mind-blowing. But first, let's break down our second option. This looks...
Oh, hold on.
Okay, well, while we're waiting
Actually,
for
looks like
that...
it sucks, dude. I don't want to climb down this.
wait, hold on a sec. How much was this? How much money was this? What was it?
Exactly. How much did you spend on those shoes?
Crazy. That's wild. Yeah, I probably should pay for the what is it? Is it YouTube Premium or YouTube Red or something? Yeah.
Everything comes to a cost nowadays.
You know what I'm saying?
And maybe its ambition is why it didn't come to fruition. Introducing our second potential ride system, the flying roller coaster with vertical load and launch. Clearly inspired by the Avengers, this ride vehicle shape resembles Quinjet-like design details, complete with an Iron Man-style emblem on the guest's lower chest. Let's dive into the transformation from a Quinjet to a jetpack. Guests unknowingly board onto one of 3 different floors, entering their Quinjet, where the mission is revealed through video projections. As the action begins, the back of the jet opens, revealing rows of seats moving backward towards the exit door, accompanied by convincing breezes from wind cannons. Guests realize their row of seats are jetpacks. Once aligned with the track system, guests transition from the Quinjet and they're ready to join the Avengers on their mission. As the vertical takeoff propels them through a portal, riders embark on a thrilling roller coaster journey through spins, dives, and tight turns, surrounded by projected Marvel storytelling. The ride vehicle can adjust to lay flat, providing a sensation of true flight, before returning upright at the end of the mission for unloading. My guess on this potential ride system being canceled was due to costs. A fast indoor roller coaster requires a massive show building to house such an epic adventure, and cheap Chapek probably thought that a King Thanos simulator could deliver a near same experience on a budget. Speaking of future plans to come, I know what one of the best plans you can make is subscribe to Hey Brickey right now and keep going on this adventure with me. If our last ride system was canceled due to limited budget, this next ride system may have been canceled due to limited technology, because this is truly ambitious to use a robotic arm to move us from ride system to ride system.
Ooh.
Wow. Introducing our third potential attraction, an ambitious Avengers theme experience comparable to Star Wars Rise of the Resistance, featuring multiple ride systems aided by a robot arm. Guests begin their journey in a Quinjet pre-show, where their rows of seats fly through a showroom with the first ride system mounted above the guests, immersing them in Marvel-themed scenes. A robot arm then clips onto the back of the seats, triggering the disconnection from the first ride system. After a 180-degree spin, guests are placed on a ground-based ride system for a lower-level mission, where guests will ride through various different Avengers-themed show scenes. Next, a second robot arm transfers the seats onto a platform on a third ride system, revealing a hidden simulator beneath the guest's feet.
The only thing this sounds really cool, but I'm watching this going, this thing is going to be down all the time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
This is going to be down all the time.
This platform moves slower, leading guests into a private dome for full immersion in their own Avengers story. Then, returning to the faster ground-based track, guests are loaded into another mission where their seats are connected to a carousel. As they ascend, a smoke effect enhances the sensation of flight.
This is too much. That's
way too much. I mean, very very ambitious, but holy crap, that's the thought process into that.
This is extra, like beyond extra. You know what I'm saying?
Because here's the thing: if it does break down as much as I agree with you, OG, that it would. I mean, if Rise of the Resistance broke down, I can imagine what this would do. But everybody is going to be at a different spot. So if it breaks down, it's like, okay, we got to get like someone up there to get them off the spinner section. Now we got to go over here to get these people off the Kuka arm. We got to get over here to get people off the lower level. It's like, oh my God, what a nightmare.
What a mess.
I think, I don't know, like looking at this, for me, I don't know, I have this weird thing with like certain attractions. So just kind of real quickly, I kind of just go over it real quick. So the kind of simulator dome thing they described, right? And you're by yourself. I don't know why, guys, but I kind of have this with Soren a little bit. I have this weird kind of phobia of like big empty spaces.
Okay.
I don't know what it
is. So it's almost like reverse claustrophobia in a weird way.
Yeah, exactly. It's very very strange. Like I remember like when Back to the Future at Universal was there. I liked the ride, but I remember I had this weird feeling and fear of like falling down there and like this big void of like.
I will tell you really quick. Sorry, Ebba, not to interrupt you. You can finish it, but I just have to say, if you ever go on a Southwest flight and you sit in a middle seat next to 2 6'4" bikers with shirtless tops that smell like they haven't showered in a week, trust me, you'd welcome it.
I'm sure. but yeah, so like just look at this ride system. It looks like I don't want to be moved around that much from like system to system to system. You know, I want a more cohesive ride system. I mean, maybe 1 or 2, sure, right? Like, but not like 4 or 5 different things at once.
Yeah, it's a little too much. Like Rise of the Resistance is kind of perfect, right? You do the transport, you get dropped off, you're on the like that's cool, but this is like way too much going on.
Seats gradually flattening to simulate flying as they gather their height and returning guests to the upper floor where their mission began. And these seats that are the real star here that are able to be clipped into 4 different ride systems, returned to the load area where they can begin another mission for another guest. This ambitious technology combines elements from 4 different patents, resulting in an epic adventure from Quinjet to Jetpack. While all 3 concepts offer unique experiences.
Really quick, I just have something to say really quick.
Sure.
If they were to make that third one, that's basically the $60 billion.
Yeah. Well, here's $60 billion, but then they got to have a B mode, a C mode, a D mode, you know, like, because everything's going to break down.
Oh, it's crazy. Like, I feel like the first concept that he showed, the pendulum one, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was actually going to be web slingers.
Yeah.
And you were going to go through the city and you're swinging. You know, that was I think originally the concept for Spider-Man. Cool. They didn't do that for some reason. I'm not really sure. But these 2 are definitely, these were.
It makes me wonder if option 2 is going to be, I mean, unless they stick with the kind of the movable simulator that they were going to kind of go with. But I wonder if they do decide, because now that they have a little bit more of an extra budget, could they go with option 2? Because the only reason why Brickey is saying that they didn't is because of the cost, because you need a giant show building. Obviously, if you look at the Google Map area, they have the area for the show building. Mm-hmm. So it was all just about the cost. But now, since they do have that extra money, as they say, you know, that they could spend for expansion of the park, could they initially do the option 2 where it's actually an indoor roller coaster?
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry, brother.
So sorry, man. I was gonna say, and the thing too, this Quinjet idea, So the ride system is supposed to be what the Quinjet on top of the building is, right? That's what you're supposed to be flying in, basically. So
Essentially, yeah.
yeah, so now they're kind of stuck with this idea. So now they have to figure out a ride system that's cost effective, that has high capacity, and that's like really thrilling, right? And so it's like, so now you're stuck with this type of vehicle, and you have to try to figure out how you're going to do all three of those in that capacity.
Yeah, no, it's tough. It's tough. Yeah, sometimes it's cool to break ground, to innovate. I'm glad that they're throwing these ambitious ideas around, but I think also some of the greatest attractions are very simple ideas. You know what I'm saying? Space Mountain. It's a roller coaster in the dark. It's very simple. And so even Pirates is a fairly simple concept, a boat ride. I mean, this is great, and I understand that audiences have come to expect more sophistication. I get that, but I think there is a point where you can kind of go too far with it. This is too far, I think.
Yeah.
Well, so real quickly, I just want to say, so couldn't they make a thrill ride? I know it's a Quinjet, so you're flying around and stuff, but okay, my favorite attraction at Disneyland, guys, is Indiana Jones. Okay, I love the franchise, I love the character, I love the attraction, right? So that's a thrilling ride. It's a story, character, awesome music, right? But it's not like a super scary, thrilling ride, right? But they combine like a dark ride with like EMV or something like that. And so they combine two kind of ride systems into one. So I wonder if there's anything where they can kind of do something similar, but for like the Quinjets. I know one's on the ground, one's flying. I get it. But I wonder if there's any type of new e-ticket system they can make that's thrilling, but not super scary. You know what I mean?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, OG, didn't they mention at the Destination D23 when they added a little bit more detail on the ride system? Because they didn't give anything more on the storyline, but they mentioned that the ride vehicle itself was supposed to have like a type of mechanism where you either start on the land and then it raises to make it feel like you're flying, and vice versa. It was supposed to have like a land and air quality to it.
Right. I remember hearing something like that. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting. I don't know. I think but I think you're spot on when you cite Indiana Jones Adventure as sort of like the direction they should go in. Maybe not necessarily with a Jeep or anything like that, but you want to have an attraction for Marvel that's thrilling, but you don't want it to be like a lot of these are like, it's like a coaster. You don't want to alienate like people that don't want to go too intense either. You know what I'm saying? So that Indiana Jones is kind of like that Goldilocks where it's like, hey, I'm having a good time. It's exciting, but it's not a coaster where I'm overwhelmed, So they need to find that balance. And if they can crack the code and do that Indiana Jones kind of energy, I think they have a huge hit on their hand.
Stands out for its innovation in multi-layered storytelling. If this was the potential ride system, I would guess that it was canceled due to being way too ambitious, requiring too much new technology, and making it incredibly expensive. I would love to know which one of these three was your favorite.
Sorry, can you just pause that real quick? Yeah. Can you imagine if the ride breaks down and you are stuck in that position until
I'm telling you, man.
Okay, but here's the thing. Okay, so real talk. This right here, like, I think honestly, like, if it broke down or I was by myself here, I would not like this because again, like the kind of phobia I have of being like in this kind of hollow type of empty spaceness. That's just a weird phobia I have. But especially being by myself, I think that would freak me out. But
yeah, no, I understand, and it looks like an uncomfortable situation, and it's weird. It almost has like a Flight of Passage kind of vibe to it, almost, doesn't it, George?
Yeah, because when you board like for Flight of Passage, I mean, you have like a kind of like a bike that you sit on, but you do have like that squatting kind of. But the only difference is your shins are pressed up against, so you're kind of like leaning into in an angle. This looks like you're just like, honestly, it looks like you're taking an air shit, but it's like
an air shit. That's a new one.
Hey, if you want to take down King Thanos,
Exactly.
With the Disney parks, the plans change all the time. And here's how the plans change over at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, where I break down.
So really cool video. I want to give a shout out to Hey Brickey. Definitely check him out. I will be linking his channel down below. Make sure you subscribe to him. He's an awesome guy, awesome insight. So definitely check him out. And a big shout out. Great video. But interesting stuff, man. Interesting stuff. But I got to be honest, like out of those three concepts, I think the first one, way too Spider-Man-ish. That's not an Avengers ride, in my opinion. The second one, I think works the best. It was simplistic enough. Problem with that one though is it has the capacity issues. That was the issue with Imagineering. And the third one was just way too extra, just way too much going on. I mean, that thing is always going to be broken down, so I don't really know. I'm not really feeling, I don't know. None of them really hit that sweet spot for me, but I'll start with you, George, then go down to Jay, then Ebba. What do you think, George? Out of the three, which one are you feeling any of them, or
the pendulum that definitely was made for Spider-Man? Sorry, Jay, I know you love web slingers. I still don't know why they didn't use that concept, but I get it. They needed something a little bit more for a CD ticket attraction to kind of like balance out the land, being that they are going to have an e-ticket. Plus, they have Mission Breakout. So if you have a land with 3 e-ticket attractions, then you're kind of going into that universal status where it's like, okay, can the little ones handle these kind of rides too? So I get where they got the concept for web slinger. So, but that one wouldn't fit, I don't think, for the Avengers. The second one where it's like the vertical kind of indoor coaster, and then where it's like you're flying, I could see that one. I think that one would be the more realistic approach, but then again, there you go again, where it's another coaster, so it's like, what is the height requirement? Can, certain people, handle it? Do you want to make if you want to make a ride where everyone can enjoy it, as Michael had mentioned, like Indiana Jones, it's like, it's thrilling enough, but like a lot of different age groups can go on and enjoy it. And then the third one was, it's cool, but there would be so many operational issues with that. Right. That thing would probably work like once every year. Like it's like one day out of the whole entire year. And it's like that thing would constantly be down. So yeah, I agree with you, OG. I really don't think I would go at number 2 if I had to pick out of the 3. Yeah. But just the overall logistics of it, I think probably the route that I think that they're going to go, not to say make it like Transformers, but have a type of ride system that can do multiple things, that gives you the sensation of maybe flying and landing and taking off. That's cool. But where it's thrilling enough, but where like everybody could have the opportunity to experience it.
Yeah, it would be like an Indiana Jones, like what Ebba was saying. That would be the perfect kind of sweet spot, What do you think, Jay?
I think so. Here's the thing I'm struggling with a little bit, is that we're talking about ride systems, not necessarily story. Right. True. So I get it. Like the question isn't about story at all here. The question is about which ride system did you prefer. But I'm going to pitch you guys a story idea instead of a ride system, because I think it could be paired with an existing ride system. To Michael Ebba's point, and to your point, OG, about it being the Goldilocks, I think that what you could take here, and go with me on this. What if in Avengers Campus they were installing, the X-Men were helping them install one of their training facilities where it's all virtual reality training. You know how the X-Men have in the X-Men cartoon, where they'll fight the Sentinels, and they'll do it all in like a virtual reality kind of space. What if the X-Men were setting up that virtual reality environment for the Avengers to practice and do their training, and the system kind of goes haywire? So you've got X-Men and Avengers, because it's Avengers Campus, so it's weird to work the X-Men in. But if they're installing one of their training systems for them on Avengers Campus so that they can be able to do this, I feel like that gives you a lot of opportunity, because that is a virtual reality system. So screens make a little bit more sense in that context. You can actually take the big space and change it in the moment. So you don't have to have like a big giant space where there's all this ride kind of activity. It can just be like, we're in this corner and like, wow, this whole big space. Sorry, Michael, it's a big space. There's this big space with all this stuff going on with sentinels and whatnot. And then it can ride you over to a different section where a different scenario plays itself out. And you can actually take, if you want to do the multiverse, like it's not an actual multiverse, but if you wanted to take like the greatest hits of the MCU, you could, because you could just change the room to those moments, right? And I feel like you could use that. There's a couple different options. One, you could be partnered up with Charles Xavier, and you're in the wheelchair with him, so to speak, and it's just the Doom Buggy attraction, and you're just kind of cruising through as lots of stuff happens around you. I think that a dark ride that has a little extra thrill to it is sort of the perfect e-ticket attraction for everything, right? Totally agree with what you guys have said. And so I feel like all three of these things miss the point. Yeah. Because it seems like what they're trying to do is they're trying to say the ride vehicle is the point. But even with Rise of the Resistance, the ride vehicles are not the point, right? Like the overarching story. This is, people got off Rise of the Resistance and almost started crying, and I was like, "You've got to be kidding me! Like, why would I? How are you crying on this ride? Like, get a life, you losers!" And then I wrote it, right? And I almost cried when I got off the ride. Now, why was that? Why was that the case? Because what the storytellers did was they said, what if you were important in Star Wars and you got to be in a Star Wars movie? Like, that's what they gave us. And it was amazing. It didn't really, all the rides. Notice this, right? There's a very simple simulator at the beginning of that ride. Then you walk around a lot. One of the most thrilling scenes there is you walking around. You're not on a vehicle at all.
Right.
And so this sense of immersion in a story where Kylo Ren is like, you are part of the problem and I need to deal with you, and you're in Star Wars, that's the thrill. That's the thing that we love about that ride. So I just feel like what's missing here is we're missing a really compelling story that would engage us in. That's why I say if it was something like the training facility that the X-Men are involved in setting up, or even if you did like that exists, and then it's like Marvel Civil War a little bit, where it's like Marvel or Avengers versus Avengers, anything like that, where we're immersed in that moment, where it feels like we're in the movie. Because Spider-Man, the Web Slingers, is not we're in the movie. Spider-Man's like, you go take care of this stuff, right? Like, so I think that's the sense of immersion. And when people talk about Harry Potter, that land feels like you're in the movie, right? Like we want that feeling. We want that sense of like, wow, now I am in this story. Flight of Passage that you mentioned, George, you are in the movie, right? Like there's something there that I think that we're missing because we keep talking about. I was so excited, and I'm sure you guys have covered this, and I think I even saw a thumbnail from you. I'm so excited that Joe Rohde is training Imagineers because he knows that. He's the guy when it comes to that, you know? And so I want to see more of that, not more. Universal's the one that always gives us the creativity, and you go there, it's another screen. And like, I don't go to those stories to be, those feel like they're trying to thrill me for a few seconds. Disney's doing something different and has historically. It's immersing me in a story that I wanted to be included in. And I think Universal did get that right with the Harry Potter stuff. But other than that, it's usually just like the Hulk coaster, right? Where it's like, is there any reason for the Hulk to be doing flips all over the place? Not really. You know what I mean? Like, so it's fine. But and they nailed it with Spider-Man too. I'll compliment Universal when they nail it. Like they nailed it with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But again, you are in that scenario. You are part of that story. And that's what I want from another e-ticket attraction. And I think I love Brickey's video. I think he does a great job of like getting to the point of like, they all sound like they could work, but get me in the story. You know what I mean? And I don't want it to be Quantumania.
And I agree with you, Jay. The story should be first. The ride system should be secondary to what the story is about, because it all has to be cohesive based off of what the story is telling. Then that's how the ride system comes in. Because if you're on a fast-paced kind of roller coaster going up and down, backwards, forwards, loop-de-loops, it's like, okay, well, how can you then really battle King Thanos if that was the actual storyline. It's like it wouldn't make any sense.
It wouldn't make any sense. And Jay, you're right. It feels like, and we're not in the room, so maybe it's different, but it does really feel like they were figuring out ride systems and then first, and then we'll figure out a story to go with this cool ride system. Yep. And that's not what they like for Indiana Jones, for example, right? It's not like they like, oh man, we have this new Jeep ride system. What can we use with this Jeep? No,
right.
You know, it was okay. We're gonna do Indiana Jones, so let's craft a ride system that goes along with this property. Yep. And it feels like you're right, where it feels like it's like we're gonna try to like just do cool ride systems for the sake of it being a cool ride system, and we'll shoehorn the story in after. You know what I'm saying? And you can tell that's kind of where they're going with it. It feels like it.
And guys, and this again, like I love Indiana Jones, right? And also, of course, I love Rise too. But that's why I love is like that when I'm in Indiana Jones or I'm in Rise, right? I feel like Jerry said, I'm in the story, right? I'm part of this, and that's why I love it. You know, it's like even on Rise, like one of my favorite moments is when is after the part with like the gun cannons, and you're going and you hear the music, dun 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 dun, dun, right? I'm like, oh, this is so cool, right? Yeah. It's awesome. Or you're in Indiana Jones, you know, and it's like they need to work on the story first and the characters, and then like George said, build a ride system around that because it has to make sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just make a ride system just because, oh, you know, people want to spin and go for loop-de-loops. Not me. I don't want to do that. You know, but I mean, if it makes sense for the story, cool. But I think they need to do story first because Disney has always been pretty much, you know, on top for storytelling. You know, I want them to tell great stories and then come up with a cool ride system that matches that, you know?
Exactly. Well
said.
And
you can actually track to when they've done it right and when they've done it wrong. Because we've said a bunch of rides about how they're awesome, but like imagine thinking you're gonna get on the Millennium Falcon, and then it's Hondo Inako telling you you're gonna steal some whatever cargo thing it is, right? Like you're like, dude, you just did not nail the story. Like the story is just like you could have had me on any of the missions that they went on. You could put me on the Falcon, and we got to fly it with Neum Num, and there's a Neum Num like animatronic next to you as you're going through like the Death Star. I mean, like these are concepts that are like, dude, this was easy. Like you just whiffed it. You know what I mean? Like it was just did not work. And so I think that there's a lot to be said for telling a great story. The ride system is not as big of a deal as people think it is. You know what I mean? Like anyway, I think.
And actually, to your point, Jay, to when you mentioned about like Smuggler's Run and Rise, like when they first announced them, and they didn't really have too much information on Rise of the Resistance. They just said the battle between, you know, good and evil. That's all they said. That's all was mentioned. And you're in the middle of the battle. That was it. And then they said, and then you're going to fly the Millennium Falcon. Well, I'm thinking in my mind, okay, the Millennium Falcon is going to be the star attraction of Galaxy's Edge. You know, whatever this other attraction is, like that's going to be the second go-to, you know, right? And then you get on Smuggler's Run and you're like, oh man, I'm sorry, but this is a piece of crap. Like it's like,
well, and the thing too with that, okay, here's the thing. If I was to create a Millennium Falcon attraction, I would have basically like okay, so some people would go into the cockpit, right? Yeah. But then you would have another ride vehicle that some people that you might get. You don't know which ride vehicle you're going to get. You might get the cockpit, or you might get the gunner, the little room with the gunner. Mm-hmm. And you have like a gun, and you're like, you know, you're doing it like full Falcon style.
Yep.
The issue they made here is like, okay, we're going to have everyone in the cockpit. Yep. And we're going to have people shoot from a button on the wall. It's like it doesn't feel the same. You know what I'm saying? You should have had alternating you know, ride vehicles, you know. So you have the gunner, you have the cockpit, and like you were saying, Jay, you can have like an animatronic Chewie. So you're in there with Chewie and you're going on these missions, Death Star. I mean, there's so much they could have done with it. I mean, you could even then, if they wanted to, they could have even done sequel trilogy. I mean, Rise of the Resistance is sequel trilogy, and it's still fantastic. Yeah. But this whole thing about the coaxium, I think it's called.
And that's what it is, coaxium.
Right? The coaxium and stuff. It's like, come on, you know.
Well, and OG, to that, and also, actually, all you guys' points is that, so, Jay, I don't know if you know, but me and OG and Theme Park Wizard went to Universal last month, right?
Yeah.
So here's the thing.
Wizard.
theme park wizard. So I haven't been to Universal Studios Hollywood in like over like 15 years. So it's been a long time. It's been a long time. So I got to experience the Wizarding World for the first time.
Yeah.
Dude, that's by far my favorite place in Universal, dude.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I went on Forbidden Journey. I was kind of nervous about it because I didn't know how I would like the ride system.
Yeah.
So I went on it, and dude, I loved it. And you know why I loved it, Jay? Because I loved how I in that ride, I felt like I was in like the movies. I was on the journey with the characters. It was so cool. I loved how close to the action I got. Right. It was a great ride. I was like, that was cool. This was cool.
And a shout out to whatever Imagineers worked on Mission Breakout, because talk about utilizing story with a ride mechanism, right?
Thank Joe Rohde for that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and so this is genius level thinking, where it's like, we want to change this into a Guardians of the Galaxy attraction, and they went, what if we make it way crazier? Like, so this is the kind of ride that OG and I are thinking to ourselves, like, we probably don't ever want to get on this when you tell me how it works. And by the way, I still sometimes skip it because of how it works and some of the neck issues and stuff I got. But that ride immerses you so much in a fun story through the process of storytelling. You walk into this giant place and you're like, wow, this is a place where we're going to see a lot of different types of artifacts, and it's cool. And then they surprise you with a little animatronic Rocket Raccoon, and it's like, dude, we're going to do something different on this ride. And then he plugs the thing in. His shadow plugs the thing in. It's not even an animatronic or anything. His shadow plugs the thing in, and you start to go on what should be utterly terrifying. And yet it is so fun because of the story. The story makes it so fun. They're like, yeah. You would think that this is absolutely terrifying because it's probably about 10 times as scary as Tower of Terror was.
Yes.
Except that every single scene you see, the concept of what's happening to you makes sense. And you feel like, again, you're immersed and like you're trying to help Rocket Raccoon do this crazy thing. The characters they're using are sort of crazy characters. So the idea that you'd be just going bonkers like on a spring is just makes all the sense in the world.
It's psychological because, as you said, the ride system itself, if you were to put that ride system to the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, you'd be scared out of your freaking mind.
Totally.
But because people aren't really like focusing on how the ride is moving, but it's like it's this zany, wacky kind of like you're dealing with these out of the loop characters are doing funny antics on the screen. You're hearing music blasting. You're rocking out and everything. It's like, and I have to say, Joe Rohde as a storytelling Imagineer, he is the GOAT. He is the beast.
Yeah.
No pun intended, because the beast, the Yeti, Rohde, fix it. Anyway, but I have to give it to him because literally, as I mentioned before earlier, May 27, 2017, I was there opening day for Mission Breakout, and it was the crowds were just unbelievable that turned out for this thing. But I have to give it to Rohde because literally he opened Mission Breakout and Pandora on the same day. He started in California, opened Mission Breakout, flew over to Walt Disney World for Animal Kingdom, and opened Pandora all in one day.
It's amazing. He's brilliant. And here's the thing that was really smart about Mission Breakout was that because it's an overlay, they're taking the existing ride and basically just retheming it, right? The smart approach to this is, okay, if they, well, for example, if they would have just taken Tower of Terror and picked a Marvel property and made a spooky Marvel ride, it would have felt very much like an overlay. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like Tower of Terror vibes with Marvel characters. Rohde's smart enough where he was like, you know what? We're going to go a completely different tone, a completely different energy. We're going to flip this whole thing on its head. And it made it feel like its own thing. Yeah. It didn't feel like Tower of Terror with Marvel characters in it.
And the time frame, because that's when Guardians was like at its like best, like like after the first film came out, the second one, like I still prefer the first one over the second one, but I mean the second one was still good. But it was like at the hype when people were like craving for the Guardians of the Galaxy, because it was actually one of the first Marvel movies that was kind of like connected to the actual MCU, but it was completely separate. Like it had its own vibe. Like it didn't have that typical Marvel kind of esque feel to it. And I think that's what was like drawing people, like when they were going to see these movies in theaters, it was drawing them to the antics, to the characters, to the comedy style. And it's like, when you got to tie that into a ride, it's like, well, how do I incorporate that where you have to take the ride serious, but it's thrilling at the same time, but I already have the actual building and ride system. So it's like, how do you put all that together? And it's like that Rhodey was literally, I'm sorry, I'm going to go balls to the wall with saying this. Rhodey is the only Imagineer that could have done that ride and made it justice.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, and also too, guys, here's the thing, right? Is that I think this was on one of the episodes of the Imagineering story, if I'm correct, on Disney Plus. But this is where the creativity comes from, right? Is that when he was tasked to do this, I remember he was saying like, okay, so so I was looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, what does this look like, right? Like if you stripped away Tower of Terror, like what does this thing look like? Oh, it looks like a fortress. So, the collector, right? So that's when that came into it. And the time he needed to do that was impressive as well. Because he needs to turn that thing around so quick.
I think it was like 6 months or something.
6 months. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was
That's
insane.
crazy.
It was insane. And this is
how do you like that? Oh, sorry, OG. Just really quick. 6 months Mission Breakout, 6 years Tron.
Yeah, right. I know. The magic of Joe Rhodey. But and this is the thing too, and this is why I say this all the time in videos. When people say no one asked for this or no one asked for that, it's like, have an open mind. No one in their right mind ever asked for Tower to be rethemed to Guardians of the Galaxy. No one wanted that. No one thought that was a good idea.
No,
they were mentioning about it.
Yeah,
they were mentioning about it.
Yeah, exactly.
They were mad.
But hey, guys, for all of you guys, what do you think about this? Okay, so if Disney, because we don't know what their process is now, right, for the new Avengers E Ticket, right? If they're still kind of struggling, let's just say hypothetically, if they're still kind of struggling to figure this out, what do you think about if they just totally ditch the Avengers like attraction idea or ride idea, and they focus on a individual character IP story like Captain America or Thor? Or what have you? Like
they were going that route in the very beginning, weren't they? It was supposed to be like something with Captain America.
Yeah, the rumor was that the Tron vehicle, the bike coaster, was supposed to be a Captain America ride here at DCA, which would have been kind of cool for Captain America. But I think that Ebba, you're onto something with that. I think that they should. See, this is the issue, calling it Avengers Campus, because like, how relevant are the Avengers going to be, going forward? They were hot in 2012, 2015, right? But are they still hot? I mean, not like they were.
Scarlett Johansson, yes.
Well, she's very hot.
Well, OG, not only that, but going into future phases, the Avengers change, right? Like there's always new Avenger members.
It might have been better to have an overarching just Marvel land, and like, I'd love to see an X-Men ride. Like, I think, Jay, you were on something with the X-Men. I think an X-Men attraction would be dope, dude.
Yeah.
That'd be so sick.
So cool. Really quick to go back 1 second. And I think that, Ebba, I think that idea is a great idea. To go back 1 second, I did want to make one comparison to showcase the amazingness of Joe Rhodey versus maybe the little bit of a miss using 2 rethemed rides. Okay. Both in DCA. You got this amazing experience that you have with Guardians of the Galaxy. Completely different story and immersion in a story. Okay. You are told what we're going to do. We have an objective. There's a goal. There are people that are going to try to prevent us from achieving that goal. And at the end of the day, we hope that it all works out. Right. That elevated that ride to the point where Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout is still a long wait every single time you go to the parks, right? I mean, on rare occasions it won't be, but most of the time it's a long wait. Take that and contrast that with what they did with Incredicoaster. Okay, now why am I contrasting with Incredicoaster? Incredicoaster is not a bad ride. It wasn't a bad ride to begin with. It's a fine ride, but they had the opportunity to tell a story, and instead, is there an objective? Yes, Jack is loose. Fine, I'll give them that there's an objective, but notice how they didn't really change. And now, granted, it's a roller coaster, so it's hard to change massive amounts of the ride. But to me, this was a miss in storytelling because it didn't make me feel any different. It didn't make me. So storytelling is all about how did you make me think? How did you make me feel? Did you make me happy? Did you make me sad? Did you make me angry? Did you elicit some sort of emotion in me, right? And so I think when you do that, when you elicit emotion, people want to go back to that again, right? There's a dopamine release in your brain. You go, I got to go back to that again. You can also get a dopamine effect just from the thrill. But guess what? You don't a lot of times get the I want to go back again to the thrill. And so I hardly ever go on an credit coaster, right? Because there are some really cool ride elements that they added. I love how they when you're supposed to be Dash, his name is Dash, right? And Dash, it goes across and all the little water makes it look like he's just running along the water. Great effect, but that's not a story. That's an effect, right? Yeah. So like whatever ride systems they use, please just tell an amazing story.
So can I ask you, Jay, because you are our story guy. So because of the type of ride that it was given, because it was just California Screamin', it was basically a pier-based, typical like Coney Island roller coaster. So they're tying the Incredibles to it. Yeah. What would you have done differently to add a better story arc?
That's a good question.
That would get people to say, you know what, they just took a simple roller coaster and they like put a great incredible storyline to it.
The first thing I would have done is I would have had something in the queue. I would have updated the queue. This is something that Disney has been historically amazing at. In fact, I want to compliment Universal for the Skull Island ride. The queue for that ride.
The queue is phenomenal.
Better than the ride.
It is. Right? Yes, exactly. Yes. I'm like, I'm in the queue. I'm waiting for this thing. I'm like, oh my God, this thing's going to be amazing. And then I'm like, oh my God, it's not.
I know. It's such a bummer. The climax of the ride is in the queue. Can I go back and wait for this ride? It's better. No, but so I would have added something to the Indiana Jones is another one, right? Mm-hmm. I can't stand it when they have you just fly through Indiana Jones's queue because this is where the immersion starts, right? Like this is where I start to learn about who Mara is, why Mara is a character that matters, why Mara might be a character that I might get in trouble with myself, right? Like you learn all of those things in the queue. So to fix Incredicoaster, I would have had more in the queue. All they have really in the queue is those posters that kind of say like who they are and so forth, so on and so forth. So I would have set it up to be like, okay, the Underminer is up to nefarious deeds, and he's got this whole thing where he's going to take over the city if we don't stop him. And the ways we got to stop him are we got to achieve 3 things on this ride, and then as you get on the ride and as you go through the ride, those 3 things become very apparent to you, and whether or not they're happening becomes very apparent to you. And then when you get into the final ride, that you could have been in a little bit of more of an enclosure that kind of finishes up the story. I think those kind of things are what make rides really compelling. I think even Radiator Springs Racers, which is an amazing ride, does have a good story because it's him coming into town and kind of learning like we're going to go on this race. But even they could have done their queue better. Like there could be more storytelling in the queue there. So I think you got to have stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the beginning is basically your queue. It's the setup. It is the promise of conflict. The middle is the conflict. So the promise of conflict is I'm in Tavir Tanalir's or whatever how you say his name. I'm in his whole thing, but I know that something else is going to happen here. And then they go, the conflict is we got to get these people out of prison because they're in prison. You go, yeah, we got to get them out of prison. Now we got an objective. Let's get on this ride. We go crazy. Do we achieve the mission or not? Right. So like that is a story. That's like a beginning, middle, and then resolution is the end. Right. And I think that the best rides have all like Pirates, the promise that I'm going to get on a ship and go see you go through the swamp. And it's like, oh, wait a second. Dead men tell no tales. Like, where am I going here? Right down in. And now I'm in conflict. There's pirates fighting. They're fighting with the Spaniards. I pull in, I see and then what happens at the end? There's the devastation. Here's what happens when you go full pirate. It's not good, man. You ruin the city. So these kind of things make stories really, really compelling. And I just think that there's a way to do it well. There's a way to do it not well, and so we see that.
And I have another question for you, Jay, if you don't mind, because you haven't been on a while, so I got to catch up.
Yeah,
here.
yeah, for sure.
So you gave a great kind of storyline, of what you would have done with the Incredicoaster. Do you feel that the Incredibles wouldn't be the right IP for the type of, yes, it is a coaster, it's fast, it's high speed, but for me, anytime that I thought of the Incredibles, it was like the
George.
OG froze.
OG
Everybody
froze.
else is good, but OG froze.
Okay, so I'm good. Wait, so I'm good?
Yeah, you're good.
OG's gone.
OG's gone.
He's going into the multiverse.
He's going to the multiverse. Into the multiverse of madness.
But he'll come back in. But yeah, Jay. So anytime like I thought of the Incredibles, I always thought like of this like kick-ass kind of like dark ride that kind of takes you through like the city that they live in, and you see like, to me, like that was a great Incredible. So I felt like the Incredibles actually got cheated by being put into the coaster. So if you had to do something, like, would you have still stuck with the Incredibles, or do you think a different Pixar IP would have been more suffice with that?
That's a good question. I don't, off the top of my head, I can't think of a better one, but I do think that the Incredibles poses several problems, right? Because to your point, like the city is a part of it. Another really big part of the Incredibles is the music and the time frame, and like being in that like mid-century modern sort of feel, which is almost impossible to pull off on a coaster, right? Like,
right, exactly.
And so I think that like you do take away some of the setting and the environment that makes them awesome characters, and you kind of strip that out with what they did. The problem is that coaster is fairly intense for a Disney ride. I mean, it's been the top 5 most intense Disney rides, probably, right? And so the problem with that is that in that kind of setting, in a Pixar setting, Pixar isn't like, it's not like, so even Rock and Roller Coaster, which actually, like, by the way, has amazing storytelling because they give you a whole scenario, like, we got to get to the gig and we got to get there really fast. So let's all load up to the limo, and so we got to get there. That is like like Aerosmith is fast and crazy. So of course I'm going to get on a fast and crazy ride, right?
Of course.
So I think that it's suffering for multiple reasons. One, you don't get the best of the Incredibles, to your point. And two, it's weird to take Pixar and theme any of them. like what IP would you use for that area? I almost wish they would have like taken that ride and made that not part of Pixar Pier, and then made the rest of it Pixar Pier. But I realized they already made,
right. Or what if they would have just kept the coaster as just the coaster?
Yeah.
Like, don't really like tie it to any IP at all. They could have like the Pixar ball logo, like where the loop is.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
But then just keep it at that. Just have like the decorations for it being, and just keep it just as a seaside pier roller coaster. Why actually tie any IP to it at all if you can't make it work?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, see, because my thing too is, Jay, right? I think you were just alluding to this, is that when you do an overlay on this coaster, right? Again, you're okay, and this goes back to what we were talking about before. Your ride system's already built.
Yep.
Now you're trying to build a story around the ride system, which is a lot harder to do,
Yeah, you're right. It's backwards, right? Like it's completely backwards. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh man, here's the thing. I'm no Imagineer, Jay. I'm not a creator or anything like that. So if you go for it, Jay, you make it right. But it's funny because when you're in line for a Incredicoaster, like. When you go up the stairs and turn the corner, there's two like those 2 or 3 like TV monitor screens up there.
Yeah.
I think her name is Violet, right? The sister. There's a point in there when the family are talking about their new Incredicoaster, and I think the Imagineers even knew this. To your point, because she pokes a joke at fun of it, saying, "Oh yeah, that like how original, turning this into something else, basically, right?"
Right. Yeah, and that is, to a certain extent, that is a little bit of a pre-show, but it's like I still don't think it quite works, because part of storytelling is the one difference that I like to attribute to storytelling is what is the thing that you're going in to accomplish or do? And Walt Disney, this is where I get on a soapbox about Walt Disney. One of the things that Walt Disney was so good at was that Walt Disney made morality part of his rides, right? He was not afraid to say, I'm going to make a pirate ride that he even has some pretty intense subject matter. There's going to be men chasing women around, right? There's going to be like, but I'm going to show you that kind of behavior has its consequences. Mm-hmm. And so when you get to the end of the ride, it's like the guys who I thought were cool are not cool anymore. They're drunk. They're firing guns. The whole place is burning down. Like Walt Disney had a actions have consequences mentality. If you're going to be Mr. Toad and you're going to drink and drive, you're going to end up in hell. Like, right. Like
yeah.
You might say like, well, some of that stuff was too intense, but the point is that I think that stories, when they share a human experience that we all have, that drunk driving is awful, the end result of which could be hellish, I think is like a really compelling way of like engaging people in that story. I think that Incredicoaster, unfortunately, and sometimes you can kind of fake this too. Guardians of the Galaxy might fake this a little bit, but Incredicoaster is kind of just like, the kid got away, we got to get him back. I would call that more of a game almost, right? Like there's an objective to do, but it's not like giving you any insights in how the world works particularly.
Right.
So, I'm not complaining too much because again, like there are some amazing, just fun stories at Disney in the newer stuff that they've done. But I do hope that they also get back into a little bit of more of a, the fairy tales were all based on like really intense morality tales, and Walt Disney adapted them slightly, and he did a good job at that. But anyway,
well, I think too, and this goes, at least in my opinion, it goes for the parks, but also like the studio, right? The shows and the movies. I feel that, and Jay, please let me know, because George, I know me and you, we've talked about this. But please let me know, like, what's your thought on like the villains, right? Because I feel like Disney kind of, like, they don't want to go too scary or too harsh with the villains. They don't want to kill them, or they don't want to kill things anymore, right? Or have guns in their movies, like, or way back then Pinocchio, right? They had the cigars and drinking beer, right? Because I get it, they're trying to appease to like the now current culture times. But there's stuff where there's stuff that is reality of things that have happened or that are currently happening, right? And it's like that's just the kind of world we live in. Now, I'm not saying you need to make like stuff that's so gory like anime stuff, right? Where there's blood everywhere. But I think it's great when they can, like you said, take that human experience and it resonates with your guests, with your audience. So but I just want to see what your opinion was on about, like, especially with the whole villain aspect, and like the kind of darker content.
And before you do, Jay, I just have to add to that, because I was talking to OG and Michael on that, because I'm a big fan of, like, I've said it for many years, I would love to see villains be more integrated into the parks more. I would love to see them have their own land. I would love to even see them have their own park, what have you. However, if Disney is not going to do the villains justice and give us this water diluted down Candy Crush kind of version of the villains, I would rather them not do it at all. If you're going to do the villains, do them justice. So that's my take on it.
No, I agree with both of you 100%. Like, so here's the reason why Disney has had to back off some of that stuff. Is because two reasons. One, they've shot themselves in the foot sometimes with their storytelling, and even Walt Disney did that. And I'll give you an example in a minute. They've shot themselves in the foot, but they've also sort of accepted the fact that not everyone responds to stories in the same way. What do I mean by that? I mean by that, the way one of the reasons I love storytelling is that it showcases actions and or behaviors and consequences. If you do these kind of things, you tend to have good things happen. If you do these kind of things, you tend to have bad things happen, right? And so that's some of the power of storytelling, is for you to be able to say, like, when you do nefarious things and become a villain, there are usually nefarious consequences, or bad consequences is maybe a better word. Whereas if you do heroic things, then that usually has better consequences, either for you or for the people around you. And I think that one of the things Disney has stopped doing is, as people have become, well, I don't know that people have become any different, but when you're not paying attention to the story and you're not seeing, so where does it go wrong? Let me explain. I did a whole video on this one time. Like, why did they have to change the Pirates of the Caribbean storyline? Right? They had to change it for two reasons. One was a problem with the original ride. The problem with the original ride was that when you got off of it, there was no problem with the ride itself. But when you got off of it, there was a merch store trying to sell you pirate merch, even though they just showed you that living like a pirate is not good. Then they said, but we realized that all the kids want to be pirates, so buy your gun and buy your hat, right? So Disney shot themselves in the foot because they made
No pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. No pun intended. Because they made a morality tale, and then they made the morality tale. They made it wishy-washy because they also said, like, but pirates are kind of cool, so buy this from us. Right? We can make money out of you. So that was part of the problem. The second problem was when they added Jack Sparrow to the ride, because the whole ride's premise was pirates are doing bad things and have negative consequences. And then when they put Jack Sparrow in the ride, it was like, wait a minute. Jack Sparrow is a pirate. I root for Jack Sparrow, and you'll notice in the movies he does like unselfish things along the way, so he becomes kind of a good guy or anti-hero. But in that ride, it's like, no, he's just part of the pirates, and he's just as greedy as them because he's looking for the map and he just wants to get gold. So now you said pirates aren't bad. Pirates are actually kind of cool. So now you can't send the same messages anymore because now I don't have a perception in my head that pirates are bad because you put Jack Sparrow in there and Jack Sparrow's cool. So there are these little elements that I think that Disney kind of, again, shot themselves in the foot with, that made them have to change some of those elements because they were sending the wrong message. But also, people tend to not invest in the stories, and they just ride the ride and go, I think this is, I like that ride and it made me happy, so I think that they just said that pirates are good. It's like, well, you misinterpreted the story, and that's not our fault. You're just misinterpreting it. But they got so that they were really sensitive to people misinterpreting stories, and they didn't want to have any of those things happen, right?
So, do you think they'll ever remove Jack Sparrow from the ride?
I mean, I guess it all depends on if they're able to reboot the series.
Well, and I think that didn't Jerry Bruckheimer announce that they are going to? I think they said with Pirates, what is it, 6? I forget it. I think it's Pirates 6, that it is going to be a complete reboot.
Yeah,
with new characters. So, I mean, depending on how popular it is, how well it's received, it is possible they may just kind of ditch the Jack Sparrow era and just add in a whole nother complete storyline surrounding by whatever they have already in there.
Yeah.
So Jay, there was a question I want to ask you because I remember you brought this up on a video before, and I loved it because I'm really interested in this, and it's the fact that when you brought up that Disney is not. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said like that Disney, they're not controlling the narrative, right?
Oh yeah.
With the PR. With the PR, I love that because I feel like Disney is constantly now in the past couple of years, and now they keep just responding to things, whether it's like fans or other theme parks. They're not moving themselves forward, taking the initiative to drive that creativity. They're just responding to things. And I feel like that they're doing that from the movies to the parks. And it's kind of frustrating because I'm used to Disney, being the self-driven initiators to go ahead and create these new stories, new ideas, new rides, all this stuff. And now it feels like now they're like the person behind trying to catch up.
Right. Yeah, no, 100%. And I'll probably have to bounce after I answer this, but yeah, that's my biggest complaint. So I'm glad you brought it up, Eva, because the reality is that Disney used to like you said, they used to control the narrative. They used to say, this is what this is. I remember one of my favorite eras of Disney PR was back in about 2012. So this is like while they're creating Buena Vista Street, right? They went out to some content creators, including Mike Tompkins, and they had them create like Disney songs, and they filmed them in the parks. And it was just this sense of like they captured what it was like to be in the parks. And it was not about anything else that was going on. It wasn't political. There wasn't any like others like side value systems that they needed to try and promote or whatever. Not that I'm against that. I'm not against that. I'm just saying it wasn't about those things. It was about this is what the experience could be like. And they even did it with when they bought Star Wars and they started doing the campaign with Darth Vader riding all the rides. And it was like, that's so clever because Darth Vader is me and I want to go on those rides. You know what I mean? Like it. And so it was, they were so good at, and that wasn't PR so much as it was advertising. But the 2012 examples that I gave of Mike Tompkins has he does a version of When You Wish Upon a Star that if you have not seen it, go search for Mike Tompkins When You Wish Upon a Star and watch that video. It will make you want to go to Disneyland tomorrow. Like it's so great. And what they used to do is they used to say like, we're in control of the narrative and we know what experience we deliver. So we can promise that experience. And so nowadays, what I feel like they're promising something that they have not delivered upon yet. And that's a whole different kind of problem. And so now you're saying like, now you're looking at what people are, this is what I feel like they're doing. They're looking at what people are talking about and they're going, oh, cool, we'll provide an experience around that. And I just think that they've missed the boat on that. They should exemplify the experiences that they're already able to give you and maybe tease some other things out, but do it in a storytelling way. Don't tell me you're spending $60 billion. Tease out the stories you're going to tell, right? Like,
right.
And I think that's what's causing them lots and lots of grief, especially in and again, if they were the Donald Trump or the Conor McGregor of PR battles, that would be different. But we have a different expectation from them because basically what I see a lot of commentary online is them pulling Disney into the Conor McGregors and the Donald Trumps of. And when I use those examples, I'm not disparaging those people. I'm saying they use PR in a way that is bad PR is good PR. People could be saying whatever they want about me, but as long as they're talking about me, I'm good to go. That's not Disney. That is not how Disney functions. It's not how. Because what it does to us big fans is it pulls us into those spaces. We don't want to be in those spaces. We want to be in the space where we're watching Darth Vader on the rides going like, I wish I was like Darth Vader. And so don't pull us into those spaces. And unfortunately, I think a lot of that is on Disney. Yes, there will always be the negative Nancys out there saying negative things, but it's on Disney not to pull us into those spaces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very well said.
Yeah, very well said, Jay. Yeah, that was great. That was really great.
Well, I want to thank you both for joining. Well, I guess me right now, but us, OG and I, because unfortunately, OG is having some technical issues and has asked me to close us out. I'm going to start with you, Jay. If you could let everyone know where they could find you or not find you on social media, sir.
Yeah. You won't find me on X much anymore because I don't want to be pulled into those negative spaces too much. But I do love these conversations. And by the way, I don't want to be like I'm not like a only positive person about Disney. I'm very okay with critiquing it. But I just don't want to be too negative about it. I want to critique it in a way that is like understandable.
Yes.
And you can find me on How Stories Work with Jay Sherer. We still have no vacancy coming out this year. It's still being worked on. It's taking way longer than we thought it was going to be, but it's still coming out this year. So stay tuned for that. And then you can always catch me. Well, not always, but you can catch me whenever I'm available to be on with OG55 and the crew. I love being on here with George and OG and Michael and everybody else that shows up on this channel. It's an absolute pleasure. So thanks for having me on, and hope to see you again soon on this channel.
Awesome. And Mr. Michael Ebba, Michael Webba, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Where can everyone find you on social media?
Yeah, sir, George. Well, thank you so much for having me on, along with the awesome Jay Sheer. You can find me on Instagram, Michael Ebba. You can also find me on Instagram, Twitter/X at Michael Ebba 1991. And then you can find me here on OG55, where I talk nerds, theme park studios, all that great stuff with these gentlemen.
Awesome sauce. And of course, I am George, the Italiano. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info. And comment down below everything that we discussed tonight. It was a nice, hefty, lengthy topic. Tell us what you think about the Hey Brickey video. What do you guys think? Your thoughts, opinions? Do you agree with us? Do you don't? Even this the conversation that we had after the Hey Brickey video, a lot of like putting the story before the actual ride system. You know, what do you guys think about that? We love hearing from you. And as my brother OG always says, have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye.
세상은 누구에게나 공평하게 추악해.